Hi everyone. It's very good to see you today. And this is Yunah from University of Michigan. And thank you, Naomi and CTP members, for this great opportunity to present a new copy cataloging workflow and tools used at the Asia Library. Next, please. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you. Yeah, so first of all, and I'd like to shout out to each one of you for all the things you have done during this difficult time to make library resources available to users. It has been about a year for many of us in North America to work remotely from home, away from the office, away from the colleagues, and with very limited physical materials to work on. In this presentation, I like to share with you the experience of technical services colleagues at the Asia Library in a new way of copy cataloging. Next, please. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, first, let me briefly introduce the Asia Library Technical Services. University of Michigan Library has 3 technical services: Central TS, International TS, and Asia Library TS. Even though 3 units are managed separately, we work closely and share TS policies such as ordering and labeling together. All 3 TS units are working closely with the STEX office and library information technology, which is responsible for all kinds of batch load. Within the Asia Library, we have 8 technical services staff in acquisitions and cataloging, handling Chinese, Japanese, and Korean materials. Next, please. Yeah. So in terms of annual volume addition, our print collection has been growing steadily over the years, starting from over 16,000 volume in 2016. The number of volumes has increased to over 22,000 volumes in 2019. About 25% of those titles original catalog, and then whereas 75% were copies. Next, please. Yeah, so most of copy cataloging has been done by the acquisitions staff during the receiving process, as you can see on this flow chart. So acquisitions staff brings the OCLC full level records to IRS, overlays an order level record, and creates the holdings and updates item record by using a customized macro. So once completed, these materials are sent to labeling. If a matching full level record is not available, acquisition staff either send the material to catalogers or place it to the backlog area. So currently, we don't have a vendor supplied record and shelf-ready books. For copy cataloging, we accept LC call numbers without shelf listing. Next, please. But as shown on this timeline, library buildings were closed on March 16, 2020, and all of us started working from home. It's very similar to the institutions too. So in mid-June, a very small number of library staff was allowed to work on site as a pilot team. And in mid-August, Asia Library staff were allowed for re-entry. So as you all experienced, we were faced with tons of boxes from vendors and gift exchange partners. Acquisitions staff worked on site 1 day a week without a student assistant. While they were on site, making surrogates or copy cataloging with books in hand were almost impossible. So in the beginning, acquisition step copy cataloged from home based on invoice information. Later on, to process new arrivals more efficiently and to utilize limited manpower and time on site, we have modified several workflows, including the batch copy cataloging. This is still a work in progress, and so far we have cataloged over 4,000 titles in batches. Next, please. So now I will talk about the process. My goal is to find the full level OCSC record, overlay a matching order level record in ILS, and create a holdings record, which is linked to an item record. In order to do this in a batch, I follow 5 steps. Creating a spreadsheet using cataloging copy lookup program, benchmark, mark edit, and having a mark file to be loaded to ILS. A connection also provides batch functions, but I found that these programs works better with a spreadsheet. Next, please. So the first step is to create a spreadsheet. This information can be copied from vendors' invoices. For EDI invoices, this can be generated by ILS reports. For batch loading purposes, ILS number and barcode number are required. Next, please. So next, I use cataloging copy lookup program developed by Yukari Sugiyama at Yale. With the WorldCat search API, this program searches WorldCat for good cataloging copy by all these numbers. Good copies include the record with the selected encoding level, LC subject headings, and call number. Next, please. To use this program, columns in a spreadsheet should be organized as shown below. ISBN should be in the second column. Next, please. And then open the program in Google Colab and follow these easy 5 steps. So first, enter a WorldCat search API key, upload the input file, and then run the program. When completed, it shows the result in a pie chart. The final step is to just export the output file. Next, please. So this is a sample of an output file. The file has columns for OCLC number, subject, LC call number, and encoding level, as shown here. Next, please. So I review the result and then select only full level record with LC call number for my batch process. Next, please. So that's the end of my copy collect program. And then this is about the matchmark. So this is another, batch search tool called Matchmark. This is a Google Sheet add-on program and developed by Michelle Srenovsky and Lisa McCord and Lehigh University. So this program also uses a WorldCat search API and searches WorldCat automatically for good cataloging copies. In addition to the search capabilities, this program provides mark files. Here's how it works. Next, please. So the first thing is organizing columns in a Google spreadsheet. In this case, enter ISBN in the first column and leave some extra blank columns for search result. Next, please. So next step is launch the program from Google Sheet as on. First time users should click Get as on and search for Matchmark to install. Next, please. So once launched, this is what it looks like. Just enter the API key and select a tab containing ISBNs and search criteria, and then click Start Search button. Just 4 easy steps. Next, please. Here's how to customize the search criteria. It has 2 parts, search and the fields. When you install the program, and then you will be guided how to customize it. Next, please. So here's what the search result look like. It retrieves OCLC number, title, DDC, and LC call number. If a book has been cataloged already, it is marked with a local record found. Next, please. So once I select full level record only, and then I add 9xx local fields information to this spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet gets longer and longer and bigger. Next, please. So here's a sample of Michigan's local field. We include IRS record numbers, holdings information, and LC call numbers, barcode, and then catalog information as shown here. Next, please. So with the OCLC number and then local field information, this program creates the full MARC record as shown on the right-hand side, and then emails MARC21 XML file to users. So on the top is OCLC full level record, and then on the bottom blue is the local 9xx field information. Next, please. So once I get the file, and I use MarcEdit to review and edit the records. As you all know, MarcEdit was developed by Terry Rees, and this is the most popular tool for creating and editing MARC records. And I don't think I need to explain about this anymore. So yeah, next, please. And so my final step is to send this MARC file to the Library Information Technology Department. So once the file is loaded, a full level BIP record, holdings, and item records are all matched and then linked together. To help the acquisition step in the receiving process, and I go back to the input spreadsheet and then mark the ones batch cataloged. And then this is the end of my process. Next, please. So here's a new workflow with a batch process. As you can see, full level records were already loaded to IRS before the receiving process. Acquisition step, just scan ISBN in IRS and then quickly check the BIP, holdings, and item record. If the step finds any discrepancies, the book is sent to a cataloger. This process saves on-site staff's time tremendously. In addition to new arrivals, we also catalog the backlogs in batches with this process. Next, please. So you might be wondering why I use two similar programs. That's because each program has unique features, and I want to make sure the accuracy of a batch searching result. So regarding the cataloging copy lookup program developed by Yukari, so this fiction information on the subject and then encoding level information are very useful. So even though there is no call number, if it is marked with a fiction, that means someone can really, catalog very easily, especially from the backlogs. And on the other hand, Benchmark's local record indicator is very useful in checking duplicates. So also its mark record creation capability is crucial for my batch loading processes. Next, please. So during times of uncertainty, working in a new environment and creating a new workflow comes with some challenges and opportunities. When we design this workflow, we try to ensure accuracy and efficiency. During the process, clear communication with the key stakeholders and collaboration within and across departments were crucial. A batch process might not be 100% perfect, but our top priority were on-site staff's safety and a smooth workflow. We check the balance between on-site work and remote work on an ongoing basis and listen to staff's feedback and try to be as flexible as possible. And learning a new tool was challenging, but we were able to utilize those tech tools for this process. I went fast with all this spreadsheet because it'll take another like a real hands-on workshop to do this one. Next, please. So these are the resources, and if you are interested in this process, please check the following resources. Cataloging Copy Lookup Program by Yukari Sugiyama, and then Benchmark and Michelle Tronovsky and then Lisa McCall, and the mock edit by Terry Rees. And I'm more than happy to share my experience with you, and then looking forward to hearing your comments too. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Shiraishi. Is my PowerPoint available to everyone? Great, thank you. So yeah, as Dr. Shiraishi mentioned, due to unexpected reasons, Joan can't be here today with us. So I will read her notes and present the project on her behalf. This presentation has three major sections. First, I will offer a conceptual framework of digital humanities and the partnership of academic libraries in DH initiatives on campus. Second, I will explain the project, including the project scenario, the process of data collecting and encoding, and the visualization. In the concluding part, I will explain what we learned and challenges we encountered in the process. Digital humanities usually refer to the application of digital technologies into humanistic scholarship. Conventionally, scholars rely on sources such as text, historical records, artifacts, and recorded events of a performance of a human life. They examine these documents in original context to understand who created them, why, and in what setting they were created. DH informs humanistic scholars via digitalization and application tools on interpreting sources. As DH scholars have pointed out, digital humanities not only mean computational tools, but also methodological focal points. It introduces quantitative approaches to traditional humanistic research by processing a large scale of sources and making comparison and generation of models possible. Three major activities of DH undertakings are digitalization, analysis, and visualization. Digitalization provides wide and remote access to sources and preserves historical and cultural heritage. Analysis adds values on sources, illumines relationships and partners, and advances the accuracy, consistency, and objectiveness of results. Lastly, visualization contextualizes sources that have historical, temporal, and spatial context, enriches details or enhances their intrinsic, artistic, or aesthetic values. Libraries and academic libraries in particular are naturally tied to digital humanities in terms of the mission, key activities, required core techniques, and the collaborative nature. How could academic libraries extend their services to DH and support educational and research activities of their parent institutions? Academic libraries could partner with digital humanities initiatives in infrastructures and services. Libraries can provide three core services. At the basic level, digitalization and preservation. Furthermore, consultation and pedagogical services. And at the last level, project management. Based on the survey of the Committee on Institutional Cooperation, Courtney and Dallas identified three partnering models embedded in existing library services, librarians on digital scholarship project teams, and building expertise. The three models might not be exclusively adopted by libraries. Some libraries have embedded digital humanities in their existing services, such as research and reference services, preservation services, and data services. At the same time, librarians might participate in digital humanities projects as team members at the request of faculty members. Some libraries are able to go beyond that and create new library lines and develop training programs to better support the edge needs on campus. In addition to digital humanities librarians, including GIS librarians and IT professionals who provide key technical support to digital humanities, public service librarians are more frequently involved in DH initiatives on campus. These public service librarians, including subject librarians, research and instructing librarians, and special collection curators, interact more frequently with faculties and students and are more aware of the needs of DH projects. They likely play a leading role to connect DH projects to library sources and services. Moreover, technical service librarians bring expertise such as such as metadata principle and practice into the infrastructure needs of DH projects and leverage the accessibility of the desired outcome such as a website. In all, librarians acquire new skills to transfer their library environment skills into the new landscape. In other words, to add digital scholarship to their long string of subject specialities. Now let me introduce our project involving subject librarians, faculty members, and students. It was part of the Washington University Humanities Digital Workshop in 2019. This workshop is an independent unit on campus offering project consulting and supporting for digital methodologies. Every summer, it provides fellowships for students to gain hands-on DH experiences and to work along with faculty members. Librarians are also voluntarily involved in the workshop. The principal investigator of our project is Dr. Steve Miles, professor of history and international and area studies, working on late imperial Chinese history. The project centers around a well-known literatist, Lansheng in Qing, China. He was Guangzhou native and was known as a scholar, an artist, and a poet. He was also chief compiler of the Guangdong Provincial Gazetteer and was in charge of several local academies. As a result, he had frequent interactions with other public figures, including government officials, literati, artists, and religious practitioners. This project is thus designed to visualize the social connections and geographical movement of Xie from 1819 to 1829 based on his diary. The expected outcome of the project is a website implemented with the diary manuscript, its English translation, visualization of his social networks and geographical movements and other sources. This website will ideally be used both as a pedagogical resources for instructors and a research tool for scholars. The main steps of this project include data transcription, data conversion, and visualization. We use ArcGIS for geographical visualization and Gephi for network visualization. Here is an example for the original manuscript on the left side and the published transcription on the right side. Though the diary has been transcribed and published, we still often consult the manuscript in terms of word and punctuations. At the bottom, there is an example of the entries. From here, we can know where the diarists were located on this particular day and who he had interacting with. But from time to time, we encountered questions of where the diarist was and with whom he was interacting. So judgmental calls have to be made during the data entering process. There are 6 data elements that were identified based on questions we expected to find answers in the diary: when, who, where, and what. This is a long-term project, and we are hired undergraduate and graduate students for data entering. In order to have the collected information as consistent as possible, we made a list of agreements on standardization and data consolidation. I will come back to this later. Here are the controlled vocabularies of our data. Because the diarist was writing for himself and things changed a lot during the 10 years when he wrote the diary. So the names of people and places do not always agree with each other. These controlled vocabularies help to keep the consistency to a certain degree. And here are the fun parts, I hope. For visualization and social interactions, we use the software Gephi. It is a relatively handy tool that allow users to create social networks in different ways. We now can generate 6 types of graphs of the diarist social networks. Here is an example of a unimodal people-people network based on event with people's attributes. The unimodal means all the dots you see in the diagram represent one thing. In this case, are people. As you can see, the big gray dot on in the lower right is the diarist Xie Lansheng. He has the largest size, which indicate he has the most links or edges that are connecting to other dots. And the color of dots indicates the social status of the individuals. So for instance, we have pink for local elites and red for the officials. But as you see, most of them are gray, which means not applied because we haven't gone to that stage to label everyone with certain social status. And the how many interactions 2 individuals have indicated the color of the link, the edges. The darker the edges are, the more interactions they have. And hope you can see within the this big circle, there are edges connecting the dots outside the diarist, which means there are interactions between the other individuals that recorded in the diary, and we represented in the visualization as well. And if we look at the data table of the diagram, the first column and second columns are all the knots. The second column looks all the same because they are the diarist name. And the last column is the weight, which determines the color of the edges, if you remember. That shows how close or how many interactions the two individuals have. Here is another example of unimodal people-people network. The color of the edges now represents the activities. So for instance, drink, gift, or visiting others, what kinds of interactions the diarist was doing with his guests. And here the nodes are all gray because we are not assigning anything, any attribute to the nodes at this point. Here is an example for biomodel people place network. Biomodel means the nodes in this diagram now represent two different things. In this case, the green nodes are the locations and the pink nodes are the peoples. As you can see, the big green node on the upper left is the Lansheng Academy where the diarist lived and teaches. So he had most interactions there with all his students and guests. And this is another biomodel example with green nodes showing the activities. So this has a more straightforward representation of how or with which activities the diarist connected to other people. And here is a screenshot of the Geographic, the ArcGIS online, the website we created for this project. We use ArcGIS online for the geographical movement visualization. On the left side, this is the original 19th century map, and on the right side, it's the current map that ArcGIS Online has. And these orange dots indicate all the places that the diarist mentioned in his diary. And if the user clicked on the orange dots, there are more detailed information on the place. And here is a data table for the first month in ArcGIS Online. And this is what it looks like on the website. So the users can play with the time interval at the bottom to select the date or the time period he or she wants to look at. And then the map will show places that the diarist has been in this time period. And the map, the 19th century map is overlapped with the current map for those users want to see where the location is currently at. So this project started in 2017, and when we collaborated in 2019, we built a solid data foundation to achieve consistency and an enhancement of visualization. For example, in the activity of Yin, it was transcribed as banquet in 2017 and recreation in 2018. In order to have a consistent record and to differentiate it from other recreative activities such as seeing a play or visiting a garden, we set the standard transcription of Yin as drinking in 2019. We also refined the visualization. For instance, we had multiple dimensional visualization of social connections and a higher granularity level of the visualization of geographical movement. A consistent data interpretations in a diary context need homework and close teamwork with members in the project. The maintenance of controlled vocabularies like personal and geographical names requires research as well as manual work. Some desired functions that we wanted to have reached to the limitation of softwares. For instance, ideally, we want to have dots moved around on ArcGIS map as a person is actually traveling, but we haven't found a way to do that at this point. The subject librarian has been involved in the project design, metadata, and controlled vocabularies, the data transcriptions, and also connection of the project to the GIS librarian. The major contributions you can perceive are metadata and controlled vocabularies. The major challenges the subject librarian have encountered was to grasp programming languages and visualization application software and time commitment to the project. Altogether, this case suggests that library science and domain expertise are very useful, and librarians can play important roles in DH initiatives on campus. Participation in digital humanities require an understanding of DH subject knowledge, including language skills, project management capability, and the familiarity with relevant library resources and digital tools, as well as communication skills. To be fully equipped with these skills could be a big challenge for subject librarians. Lifelong learning is a mission, and collaborations with other librarians are strongly recommended. A holistic program with a digital humanities view with institutional and administrative factors such as needs assessment, long-term strategies, permanent staffing, and in institutional level motivations and training need to be in place to provide sustainable and scalable services and partnership to digital humanities. In the end, we want to send special thanks to our PI, Dr. Miles, and our great specialist from Humanities Digital Workshop, Doug and Steve. This project and presentation will not be possible without their help. And thank you all for listening. I'm very happy to take any questions in the Q&A session.
Thanks for the nice introduction, Naomi. My name is Ian. So today, as a team, we are going to present our collaborative project on mapping library digital collections for Chinese studies, which is a project within GW that we have been working since last spring. So we will first talk about the project's overview, and then followed by timeline and the workflow, then introduce the phase 1 outcomes, which includes a ArcGIS dashboard, an app, use the web app builder, and a web page with advanced functionality. Then we will go into details on the metadata, geocoding, and quality assurance. We really want to point out that we are still in the testing phase, and we really welcome any feedback and suggestions from the audience, especially those senior catalogers, subject librarians, and professors. So even though this is an effort for GW faculty, staff, and students, this open access tool will be available for broader use. It's already available for everybody to use it. This project, we expect to provide information on existing free access sources on Chinese studies to our faculty and students, especially under the pandemic situation. As everyone knows that the physical materials and the travels are restricted or limited in every way. We hope that this tool can help to promote digital collections created by our library colleagues, fill gap in existing navigation tools, help researchers to better plan their field trips after the pandemic, and provide an effective tool for subject librarians in library instruction and research consultation.
A little bit about our timeline and workflow for this project. Last June, kind of through July, we began evaluating tools and different platforms that could be used. For this project, we looked at Google Maps, Tableau, and a few others, and we eventually settled with ArcGIS Online because we thought it included all the features and elements that we wanted in our tool. During this time, we also looked at other existing maps to think about more tool or features that we might want to include as well in our tool. And then descriptions for student workers were written, and those students were hired in fall. Moving towards August and through November, data was collected and cleaned, controlled vocabulary was developed, as well as metadata. This was a very time-consuming process because we wanted to ensure that we set ourselves up so that everything a researcher might want in that metadata would be accessible to them as we created the tool. During this time, we also validated the data and began to implement it into that resource. Through November to March, so about where we are now, we were designing and implementing that mapping platform. We also worked with a design team at Create to make sure it was accessible and user-friendly. And we wanted to enhance the search and browse features for this tool. So at first we had written a Python code for the auxiliary website to increase that search and browse function of keywords and descriptions of digital collections. But we've ended up finding a way to create a web app page that you will see later in this presentation. Moving forward, we hope to wrap up phase 1 of this project and get that beta test of the online tool ready, continuing quality assurance checks and accessibility checks, and then collect feedback and suggestions to improve the tool. Finally, if we move into phase 2 of this project, we hope to expand the scope from the US and Canada to Europe, East Asia, and Oceania.
So here first we want to show a demo of how the dashboard functions. We pre-recorded a video. We will show it now.
As you can see, we've worked to create a dashboard that will be as helpful to researchers as possible, and we have some different ways to filter the data as you work through and use the tool. At the top here, there's some ways to look at data based on institutions you can browse, or by start and end years. So if you have a specific time frame you're looking for, you can filter that way. We also, over here on the left, have some collection data represented here. So this is total number of collections. At this point, we have 154 represented, and these two match because there's no filter. But as you start to filter data, this number will change. So if you click on a specific institution or browse one, you'll know exactly how many collections they have. Here's the list of collections. This is where if you search, you'll just start to get the information of just an institution if you put a particular one in. Right now it's showing all of them because there's no filter on, but it's a really good way to just get some basic information. Towards the middle, there's our actual mapping tool. Even though these collections are digital, we think it's really important to have this mapping tool because you can kind of start to see some patterns. So there's some kind of clusters. And then also, we really do believe when there are digital collections at an institution, there are generally some physical collections associated as well. So researchers can use this map to kind of plan their trip and understand if there's some institutions that they can visit all maybe in 1 or 2 days so that it's as effective as possible. Over here, we also have some basic data institutions, so how many are represented, collections are represented at each, and you can also look at the types of libraries. So we have a lot of academic libraries represented, some museums, some community and public resources as well. We can go through a search here just to kind of know how it functions better. So if we do Columbia University, that filtered right away. So there's 5 collections at Columbia. It's showing up on the map. And then if we click this collection here, it lights up in fuchsia, which is great. We have some good metadata. There's a link to the actual digital collection here, as well as here where it says click here. You have a little description, and then you can zoom in. So if you want to know exactly in space where this is, you can see that on the map. So it really, really helps ease and plan out that kind of research trip. You can also from there click on a link to the actual collection itself, which is really helpful. So that way you can go right from the tool into the collections. And then once you're here, if there's more advanced searching or browsing that you want to do, you can click this, and this will take you into the cell phone webpage app that we will also talk about during this presentation that allows some more advanced search features.
So this is the cell phone version app, and you can also use it in your PC and laptop. We will show a demo for the functions as well.
The webpage app is designed to, 1, increase accessibility of the tool. So now this can be used on cell phones as well as your laptop or desktop. And then 2, to increase the ability to search and browse collections by more specific terms such as subject or format or subject or keyword, which is great. So we think that will really advance the searches that researchers and students will be able to do using this tool. All of the collections and data represented, it's the same as the dashboard. It's just an advanced search and browse option for researchers. So as you can see, we have this map here in the center, just like the dashboard with them all highlighted. And then here we start to have some filters that you can go through. And then over to the side, we have this link so that if you have feedback or you want to suggest a collection for this tool, you can do that right on in the app itself, which is really helpful. So now we can go through a bit of a test. So if you go in here by subject, there's a drop down. We'll say history, apply. And now, just like the dashboard, you start to see some highlighted collections, which is great. And then we can go back here, advance the search. And all of the keywords that a researcher could search by directly, so if there's something specific they're hoping to find in a collection, are all connected to the actual descriptions of the collection. So you're able to get pretty specific with your search. For this case, let's say missionary and apply. And once again, we start to get even further of kind of that filter going on. As you can see here, there's some collections here, you can move around. And then you have this data, just like on the dashboard represented here. You can get more info, but you can also start to kind of click in. You've got the metadata represented here. And you can scroll through this. And then if you hit zoom to, you can start to see where this actual location is in space. So once again, like the dashboard, you can really get a good idea of if you were traveling, how close are these different institutions, and you can really kind of plan a trip around it using this tool. And especially if you're out on a trip or doing some research, you can use this on your phone for some quick accessibility or checks of this.
So here we have the web page with the advanced functionalities. So the whole page was created by Python from scratch. As we mentioned before, the whole web page is also in the testing phase right now. And the reason we are creating this web page is that we are hoping to find out some of the possible of using advanced functions that can be conducted by Python. And on the later stage, we are planning to integrate all these advanced functions into the web app that we were just introduced on the previous slides. And as you see on the screenshot here, on the slides, we have implemented multiple filtering functions on the navigation bar, which is located on the left side of the web page. And for you researchers who are interested in searching like more than one input at a time for the specific categories, they can like simply just do it on the web page. So as you see on the sample here, we have like input both the art and culture on the subject field, and by just clicking the search button on the bottom, you get all the collections that contain like both art and cultures on the subject field at once. And also likewise, you can also, for other category fields, you can also input like more than one input on that, and then you will also get it to work. Next. On this slide, we have some of the sample Python script that we have used for the project. So on the left side of the screen, you can see we have created a Python like functions that we were used to check for the validity of the links of those collections that we have gathered. So as you see, just by simply like running the code, you detect some of the links that are not working. So the reason we are checking the links periodically is because like for some institutions or schools, they might update or change their address like for some reasons, and it would be really useful for us and also for the researchers to always have the data that is up to date. So on the right side here, we have the screen of the sample portion of Python code that we have created for the web page. On next slide, yeah, we'll introduce some of our metadata.
Okay, metadata preparation actually is the key for this project, which is also time consuming. So on the background, you can see a sample CSV file, which is used for the ArcGIS online tool. So on the top, you will see the fields we have collected, which includes institutional name, library name, languages, general formats and specific formats, subjects, keywords, URL, start year and year, description, address, latitude and longitude, and etc. Originally, we also collected information for the level of accessibility of digital collections, number of digitized items, the link to the physical collections finding aids, and the geographic location of the digital collections. But as you know, this type of information has a nature of inconsistency, and this information is frequently updated by the home institutions. So eventually we dropped collecting those fields. For controlled vocabularies, again, so we would really like to get advice from senior catalogers. We have been trying our best to use controlled vocabularies for the majority of the fields, especially like the format. We defined the 5 general formats: text, image, sound, video, and data set. And we also collected individualized specific formats and from the collection metadata. But of course, the level of the quality of metadata from different collections varies. So at most of the times, we need to make analysis and summarize and define the specific formats by ourselves. And for subject area, it's more straightforward than subjects and keywords. So here subject area refers to disciplines because at GW, China study, I think in most institutions is interdisciplinary field. So we hope that our students in different field can have a basic idea of where they locate the materials related to their field. So we refer to LC subject hiding and our GW libraries categories for subject databases. I hope our students can get familiar with these fields. And for subjects and keywords, I think catalogers knows that there is a lot of flexibilities for assigning those fields. And again, because the metadata, the richness of metadata varies, so we really need to further clean up those fields. For time period, for the convenience of search function, we use minus sign to indicate BCE and use specific years to transcribe dynasties, centuries, or decades. And we tried our best to use Library of Congress subject hiding and conventions. Institutional name is more straightforward, just name authority records and some standardized name conventions.
So for each of the addresses that we collected, we went through a geocoding process, which means actually taking that address, running it through an algorithm, and putting a point on the map for that particular the location of that institution that's helping to manage those digital collections. The process itself was relatively straightforward. We did have some technical difficulties in getting those addresses to map. Initially, we tried doing this geocoding process straight through on ArcGIS Online, but there were technical difficulties associated with doing that. We ended up running those addresses through the ArcGIS desktop edition. And we also supplemented that with some QGIS work, and QGIS is an open source version of a GIS tool to get all of those addresses mapped and then getting them there into ArcGIS Online. Some of the decisions around that involved what addresses to actually map, because some of the institutions had multiple buildings with collections housed on the same campus. Decisions about how to get the addresses to actually map, such as what tool to use, what addresses to map the collections, if the collections were, of course, associated with more than one building, and design decisions as well, like this size and shape of the marker. And you can see from our various screenshots throughout this presentation that our markers have changed slightly as we've gone through in time. Next slide, please. The last sort of step in this process, and this has taken place throughout the course of this work, has been quality assurance. And quality assurance is one of those things that oftentimes happens during the course of these data related projects, and that's that there's one or more people on the project team or somehow affiliated with the project team, and they're going through and looking at those individual data records for errors, for things to fix, to make sure that the data is valid and it's as well done as it can be. So here, because we were working primarily in a CSV format, we engaged a spreadsheet to do things like check for duplicate records, because a lot of this was done in a manual data entry process. So we wanted to make sure that collections that were represented on this map weren't duplicated. Examining the underlying spreadsheet for spelling and grammar mistakes, including extemporaneous characters that might have come through, spot checking for errors, and then looking for nulls or missing values in the sheet. As a part of that process, the person who was reviewing that work was annotating and distributing questions back to the team for additional decisions that might be needed to be made around questions of, say, different format, different subjects, and other metadata where things might need to be remedied. And then we were going through and actually making revisions to that underlying data set. This process has been done, I think, at this point about 3 or 4 times, and we continue to anticipate doing more of this as we move forward into the next phase of the work, assuming that the project continues.
Here we have some of our potential future concerns and plans for the project. We are definitely planning to expand our geographic scope from US and Canada to the rest of the world. We also plan to continue cleaning and clarifying the data, as well as to seek some enhancement on searching and browsing functions. We also like to continue collecting recommendations for the digital collections on Chinese studies and to get more feedback from users. We've also created the online survey form for it. As you can see on the right side, there's a QR code for the survey form. So, I mean, you can simply just use the camera on your cell phone to scan the code, and it will bring you directly to the link. Or if you find it easier to using the link underneath it, you're certainly welcome to do so. Next, please.
So again, this is a highly collaborative project, not just for team members. We received a lot of help and guidance, advice from our colleagues externally and internally. So special thanks to Shideng Xiangli and Ying Zhang from CEAL. Patrick Ryan is the solution engineer at Israel, who is also our geography alumni. So we took a lot of advantages from that. And we also receive a lot of help from geography department, our institutions as well. So we welcome any feedback and questions. Again, this is just a testing phase, and the collections we collected are far from comprehensive. So we hope we can get continuous support from our colleagues. Thank you very much.